All right, what's good, guys? This is going to be a test first cycle guide. Now, I'm going to be doing a lot of these guides. I got a new fucking setup, so we're going to be green as fuck to do these in the future. Now, I figured I would do this test only guide first. I'm going to be doing a boot camp when it comes to starting your first cycle or starting intermediate, advanced, blast, regardless on side mitigation, just what to properly do to get the shit done. Now, I also have my boy Rufus back here. He's a new addition to this shit, so say hi to him. And let's get this motherfucker started. So, we're going to start out with this. Why testosterone only first? So, why are you going to fucking take test only for your first blast? I say this shit all the time on my IG page. And it's very important that you do this. So, first off, it is the safest and most studied compound out there. So, any compound that you take is going to be derived from testosterone, whether it's D-ball, Deca, Tren, fucking Masteron, Halo, like it's all coming from test. That's the original base parent compound to all this shit. So you need to make sure that your body is reacting well to the testosterone first. If it doesn't, then you may want to second guess going down this fucking journey, because again, every compound's gonna be derived from test. Test is gonna be the lowest side effect compound that you're going to take. Any other compound you take is going to come with a lot more sides depending on what it is, of course, but you have to make sure that testosterone reacts well with your body. So also, it is naturally produced by the body. Obviously, you already have testosterone running in your system naturally. So again, safest fucking alternative. It's this and growth are the two things that you have running through your system. You have growth hormone that's running through your system, and testosterone. So again, it's just going to be the lowest risk compound to start your journey off. Again, just kind of going over that point I just said, it helps gauge how you're going to respond before you stack other compounds, and it's easier to manage side effects solo. So whenever you're taking new compounds, tests included, you want to make sure that you test these compounds alone, or at least you try test first, and let's say you do like a test var stack or a test mass, whatever the fuck. You want to make sure that you're testing these individually, because if you just off the rip take a ton of fucking compounds like test mass Winnie or fucking test decadeball and you run into side effects, you're not going to be able to pinpoint what compound caused that side. So starting with test, it's the GOAT. It's the golden fucking compound. And as you proceed with your journey, you're going to want to test them individually. So test, cool, you respond well to test. Now let's try test VAR. So now you know how your body is going to react to tests. You know the side effects that you're going to run into. You've probably dialed your AI, your aromatase inhibitor, properly, and you just know how your body responds. Now you can add in an additional compound like VAR, and now you can test that as well to see, to gauge where the fuck you're going to be at in terms of your labs, the side effects you run into, so on and so forth. So that's why you're going to start with test only. Now let's go over the compound and dosing chart here. So when you're brand new, I did put 300 to 500 mgs. This is going to be for a pure beginner. Now you can start with 250 as well. I get a lot of my clients on 250 if they haven't touched anything in the past, no peptides, no fucking SARMs, prohormones, whatever the fuck. I'll start them off at 250, or let's say they were on a TRT dose of like 80 to 150 mgs a week. 250 is a great starting point. But a lot of people that are trying to hop into this and they know for a fact they're doing this for the long haul, I'd say anywhere from 300 to 500 is going to be golden for you. Anything past that is way too high when you're first starting out. 300 to 500 is going to give you that good fucking base to see how you're going to react at a moderate low dose. Now, typically what you're going to want to do is split your injections into two. So really, you can do this in either 2 or 3 injections. I know a lot of people, a lot of clinics are going to say you can just do 1 shot a week. Don't do this. This is going to cause massive instability with your hormone values. They're going to be going like this, like a fucking roller coaster, as opposed to staying steady. So the more frequent you pin, the more steady your test values are going to be, the more steady your hormones are going to be. Therefore, the less sides you're going to run into. If your hormones are bouncing like this, like a fucking roller coaster, you're going to run into sides, because that means the compound's peaking. You're going to have a shit ton of tests in your system. Then it's going to crash and you're going to run into side effects from crash tests, and it's just not going to be good doing this. So you always want to make sure you split it at least into 2 injections. I have a lot of my clients taking 3. But 2 is going to be amazing. If you're taking 500, this is just an example. You're going to split it into 250, 250, 2 times a week. Monday, Thursday is a great schedule to be on. Now, typically when you're starting out, you want to do a 12-week blast. So 12 weeks is like the fucking vague general cycle length duration. that you want to be on. Now, you can take this for less than 12 weeks. I probably wouldn't. I'd say 12 is going to be amazing to see some really good results. And a lot of people take a 16-week blast, a 4-month cycle for their first. Don't do this. That's way too long. 12 is like the max you want to hit. If you want to avoid sides, it's also going to be the bare minimum to get some really solid results. I'd say, again, 3 months, amazing, perfect fucking time frame for a new blast or new user taking a blast. Now, when it comes to your injection sites, you always want to hit your main glutes, your ventros. Those are like your standard starting areas when you're a rookie. Now, if you're more advanced, if you're an intermediate user, if you've already run that test-only blast, then you can proceed to pin delts. You can proceed to hit lats. You can proceed to hit other areas that aren't your glutes. But again, glutes are the most risk-free spot when you're brand new. When you're new, you don't know how to pin. At least you shouldn't know how to pin unless you're a fucking heroin addict. You shouldn't know how to pin, so it's going to feel fucking weird hitting your glute. You just have to make sure that you know how to properly inject and how to do this shit properly, because if you fuck up an injection anywhere else besides your glutes, it's going to be a nightmare to deal with, delts included. Glutes is just the most risk adverse place. There's not a lot of protruding veins, not a lot of nerve endings there. There is one general nerve that goes down the center of your glute, but you should not hit anywhere near that if you're doing this shit properly. So typically you'd start main glute, which is going to be the outer upper quadrant of your glute, whether it's your left or right side. And then ventros, the area right beneath your hip. These are two amazing spots, and that's why I put these two for your mains, and then delts are going to be a little more advanced. But can be great if you're taking TRT. So if you're on a very low dose of test and you're taking TRT, delts is an excellent spot. If you're taking a blast, which is what this guide is surrounded around, delts are not going to be ideal to start out with if you're new. So you always want to rotate these spots weekly. You always want to make sure that you're hitting a new spot every week. So with your glutes, let's say that you're just hitting main glutes. That means that you have two open injection sites, which is going to be your right glute and left glute. So you always want to make sure you're rotating these. Now, when you're hitting them, obviously you're only going to be able to hit one side per week because you're pinning twice if you're following this specific example protocol, which I don't think you should follow, but this is just an example of what to do. Again, get your goddamn blood work done. Make sure that you know what the fuck is happening with your body. Don't just take this shit point blank and do it. Make sure you know what's happening with you specifically. So, let's say that you're hitting your glutes only. So week 1, you're going to hit your right glute right here, and then your left glute, let's just say it's the same spot. Now the next week comes around. Let me actually make this a little larger so you can see this clearer. So you're hitting right here, right on your right glute. Now the next week comes around, you have to hit the right glute again. So let's say you pinned right here. You want to make sure that you pin here now on your main glute. You're never going to hit that same spot over and over and over again every week. That can build up scar tissue. You want to make sure that you are pinning like an inch away from each spot you pinned prior. So just don't hit the same exact spot. If it feels comfortable, it doesn't fucking matter. Just make sure that you're hitting different locations on that main glutes. There's a lot of fucking space on your glutes, so make sure you're hitting a new spot. Now, if we go on to the next portion of this here, we're going to choose a cycle timeline. So from weeks 1 to 12, you're going to be, or this is just the overall plan for the timeline. You want to make sure that you have all this shit set up in advance to make sure that you know what your ramp up dose is going to be, what your starting dose is going to be, what your peak dose is going to be, your ramp down dose, your post cycle therapy plan, which is coming off. And you should just have this mapped out prior. Don't just wing it. That's when you can run into problems. So weeks 1 to 12, we can see here that you're going to be pushing roughly around 300 to 500 mgs a test a week. Now, when you're starting out your first couple weeks, you want to make sure that you do a slow ramp up. So you want to do a slow ramp up to your peak. So around weeks 1 to 2 to 3, you want to get that ramp up in. You don't just want to immediately hop into the 300 to 500 mgs of tests that can cause a hormone fluctuation. You can run into temporary sides, which you don't want. So do a ramp up. Then you get to that peak, which will be roughly weeks 3 to 4. You're going to run that shit until you have to ramp it down, which will be around week 10 to 11. You'll start ramping down the dose just so to allow your body to have that high ass test come down properly. and you don't just want it to immediately crash when you come off. That's why you have to do that ramp up and ramp down. Now, weeks 13 to 14, if you're following the 12-week plan, you want to just come off everything. You want to allow your body to clear all these compounds out of your system, whether it's the test, if you're taking intermediate blast, test FAR, test mass, whatever the fuck you're on, AI is included. You want to make sure that everything is just clearing out of the system. Now, you also want to make sure that you're keeping an eye out on your esters. If you're taking testosterone or SIP, it's going to take roughly about 2 weeks to peak and kick in and saturate, and the same amount of time to exit the system. So if you're taking a longer ester like DECA or like Equipoise, you want to make sure that you're taking this into consideration so that when you come off, you want to allow your body, give it that full time before you post-cycle therapy. Because if you start the PCT with these compounds in your system, if you're taking a long ester, then you're not technically post-cycle therapying off. You're still on, and you're taking a PCT on top of your blast. So you really have to keep this in mind and know your esters, what you're taking. Now, after that cleanse period, now you're going to move on to the post-cycle therapy, which will roughly be around 2 to 3 weeks. It could be 4 depending on how heavy of a blast you ran, but typically it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. And that's going to be that for the timeline. Now, when we're looking at cycle support, very important if you're taking just test, which is this guide is specifically for test only. You want to have your AI, aromatase inhibitor. This is going to reduce estrogen if it does get too high. Typically, Arimidex is going to be the best possible option you can choose when it comes to your AI. I would not deploy Aromasin. I would not deploy Letrozole. I would not deploy anything besides Arimidex. This compound goes in and out of your system quick. If you do tank your estrogen for whatever reason, if you fucked up the dose, it's not going to last long. If you take Aromasin or Letrozole, you're going to tank your estrogen. If you do tank your estrogen, then it's going to stay crashed for a long time. Now, tanked estrogen related sides are worse than high estrogen related sides. High 2 sides consist of like gyno, mood swings, high emotional states, but tanked estrogen can legitimately make you like borderline want to off yourself, heavy depression, heavy anxiety, massive mental sides, and like fatigue. It's just not good. So you want to make sure that you dial in your AI dose early on during the blast, and you want to make sure you have this on hand. Also, your supplements, you should have this designed well in advance during your protocol. You want to make sure that all these supplements fall in line with mitigating all the sides that persist to you specifically, because everyone's going to have a different preset of labs done before their fucking cycle. So you want to make sure that these supplements coincide with reducing side effects from the compounds, first off, and second off, reducing sides that you're running into before the blast, just making sure that everything is in range. Typically, you're going to want to push fish oil, always want to push fish oil for your cardiovascular system. Nakin-Tudka is great for liver support. Now, running a low-dose test won't typically fuck with your liver like that, but it can. So having that excess liver support is definitely great. Vitamin D3, magnesium, excellent supplements to add as well. And then blood pressure support too. You always want to make sure you have all these supplements on hand, ready to go. Now, this is what to expect when it comes to your test cycle or your first test cycle. So first off, what I didn't include here is going to be libido. You're going to get a massive, massive libido spike. This is going to be one of the prime things you notice right off the bat, like weeks 1 to 2, you're going to be incredibly fucking horny. That's just something you're going to fucking run into. Now, also, you're going to obviously get increased strength after that week 2 mark once it's saturated. Massive strength, size, and recovery. You're just going to notice this. Hold on, my girl's calling me. There we go. So you're going to notice all this shit. Obviously, elevated mood and confidence. This is all going to hit around that week 2 mark. Weeks 2 to 3 is when you're really going to notice this shit. If you notice anything sooner, like weeks 1 heading into week 2, it's most likely placebo, but the libido is real. That's the one thing you are going to notice early on. But this is all the pros that you can get from this compound, and you most likely will notice it. Testosterone's the male hormone. So all this shit coincides with the male fucking hormone. The more you have, the more work ethic you're going to have, the more confidence you're going to have. Overall well-being is going to go up, and overall you're going to be more of a male, more alpha in general. That's what testosterone is. When you look at alpha men, what do they look like? They just look like guys that have incredibly high testosterone, work ethics through the roof, making a shit ton of money, great fucking body, facial hair growth, probably have a beard, they probably have a square jawline. So overall, more masculine, right? That's what testosterone is. Now, the negatives that you can experience is going to be short-term water retention in that first couple weeks. Very common to run into this when you're new. You're just holding a lot more water within that first couple weeks. Acne as well. If you're prone to acne before gear, then running anything, test included, is going to exacerbate this problem. So having that mitigation in place before is very important. Estrogen issues, like I was talking about before, gyno mood swings, high emotional states. This is probably the main thing you should be looking out for. Well, it's not probably, it is during your test cycle. This is where most of the short-term sides are going to come from, and that is that increase in estradiol. So make sure that you know what the fuck you're doing here. And then also natural test suppression. So when you hop on any exogenous hormone, it is going to completely suppress your natural hormone production. So your LH and FSH is going to go down. Your overall, you're not going to be producing testosterone. So just keep that in mind. That's why you have to post-cycle therapy to boost these levels back up into range to make sure that you're not getting shut down. And that's why that happens and what to expect. Now let's move on to the next part of this, which is going to be your blood work schedule. One of the most important things you can do on your blast is just making sure that your blood work is in range and that you're making sure you're top of your goddamn labs. So what you're going to want to do here is you always want to get 3 sets of labs done during your cycle. Let me take a quick sip. So the preset of labs is crucial. That's going to be to make sure that you're good prior to hopping on. A lot of people have pre-existing problems or issues that they're running into on their labs before they hop on. If you don't know this, if you don't get your bloods and you hop on with these problems, you are going to dramatically increase your risk of side effects, and it could cause massive problems either in the short term or long term hopping on gear. So let's say that you already are having hormone problems, or you have thicker blood than others, or you have some liver stress going on already, kidney stress, whatever it may be, or like cholesterol problems, cardiovascular problems, and you hop on gear, it's going to be bad. That's why you have to figure this out before you hop on to make sure everything is good, it's in range, and you're ready to go and do this shit properly while mitigating sides and prioritizing your health. So what you're going to want to do before the blast, the preset of bloods, you're going to want to make sure you get your hormone panel done, your lipid panel, comprehensive metabolic panel, and your complete blood count. So your test, E2, LH, FSH, that's all going to be a part of the hormone panel. Now, another good thing to add to the test, that's what's included in a typical hormone panel. Another thing that's good to add is going to be prolactin, progesterone as well, because that can cause side effects. Now, I would just get a full fucking male hormone panel, which will include all this. It's going to be a little more expensive, but it is very worth. Now, also your lipids, that's very fucking crucial as well. And then liver and kidney, it's going to be part of the comprehensive metabolic panel. And then one thing I did not include here, which I need to, is going to be your CBC. So that's absolutely mandatory to make sure that your blood is flowing through smooth through your system. Always make sure you get that CBC done. Now, mid-cycle, you're going to get the same exact shit done. You want to make sure that you emulate exactly what you got during your first set of bloods. While the compound, the test, is peaking in your system, you want to make sure that you get that mid-set of bloods done to make sure that you know what's happening at its worst. When the compounds are peaking in your system, that is when side effects will be at their absolute worst. Your bloods will look the worst. That is to be expected, but we want to know what's happening at this time. So that's why you have to get that mid-set done, and then post-cycle as well after the recovery. So 4 to 6 weeks after your PCT, you want to make sure that you get another set of bloods done to make sure that your body is back to baseline, everything's in range, and your hormone values are back up and normal, and you're producing testosterone properly. So that's what you want to do with your bloods. Now let's look over the PCT protocol. Now, what you're going to want to do here, this is a very baseline. Again, I did this in the other video that I posted on the steroid masterclass, but this is a very vague example. Do not take this point blank. Do not replicate this. Everyone's PCT is going to be different. Their dosing is going to be different. Compound selection is going to be different. This is just a general vague idea of what you would do. So what you're going to do here, typically for a test blast, you're going to run Clomid or a mixture of Clomid and Nova, or you're only going to take Nova depending on your fucking bloods. Now, typically with Clomid, this is going to boost up your LH-FSH. That's the whole point of the post-cycle therapy, is to make sure that we're mitigating estrogen rebound and to make sure that we're boosting up that natural hormone production so that you are producing test when you're fully off this shit. So Clomid, what you would technically do is going to be 50-50 mgs daily, weeks 1 to 2. Then weeks 3 to 4, you're going to take 25-25, weeks 3 to 4, and that's going to be daily with the dosage. And then with Nolva, if you're going to take Nolva only, then you would do like a 40-40, 20-20 split. You always want to make sure you're dropping the dose weeks 3 to 4 of the post-cycle therapy, or later on in the road with the PCT. If you're only taking the PCT for like 2 to 3 weeks, then you're going to want to do the first half with the post-cycle therapy compounds peaked, and then the second half reducing it down by half. That's typically the baseline model of what you'd want to go for. Again, heavily dependent on bloods. Another option here is going to be in clomiphene. In clomiphene, you can take a base dosage throughout that whole fucking PCT, which is why I love Enclo, but Clomid and Nolva are the most common, which is why I included them on here. Now, an important reminder real quick, before we end this off, you want to make sure that you're locking in your fucking diet and your training, because look, bro, if you hop on a blast, everyone thinks, right? Let me just fucking put this, because this is a very important point. There we are. All right. So look, if you hop on a blast and you do not have your diet and training in place, everyone thinks that they can just hop on, get a crazy ass physique without putting in the fucking work. It's not going to work. It's legitimately not going to work. If anything, if you don't put in the work and you expect the gear to do the heavy lifting for you, you're going to have a more shit physique. That's just how this works. So you have to make sure that your daily habits are in check, that you're doing this shit day in, day out, that you are following the diet, whatever your program is, that you're following your training protocol properly. Because again, if not, you're going to see what the fuck happens, dude. That's why I always dial this point in on my IG. It's so fucking important. Now, you have to understand that testosterone is an amplifier. It doesn't do the heavy lifting for you. So what you want to do, you don't want to stack any other compounds during your first blast. As I mentioned earlier, only start with test if you're new. If you are intermediate, you've done that first trial run with test, now you can start experimenting. But when you're new, you got to start test only, brother. You have to do it. If you want to prioritize health and make sure that you're not fucking yourself up, you have to do this. Now, what you want to do as well, you have to make sure that you are injecting at the same times. You want to pin at the same days, not necessarily times, although it's very ideal to do that. Obviously, it's not realistic though for a lot of people, but if you're on a good ass program, then you should be pinning at the same days and times. So if your pinning schedule is 250 tests Monday, Thursday, you want to make sure that you're on a program where you're pinning either in the morning or at night, and you do that consistently. You don't want to just fucking pin Monday in the morning and then the next Monday comes around and you pin at like 12 at night on a fucking Monday. You know what I mean? It has to be the same time for the most optimal stabilized hormone levels. So make sure that you're doing this, or at least trying to do it, as long as it's on that day though, the Monday, Thursday, whatever your program is. If you're on a 3 times a week pin schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just make sure that you're pinning on those days. And that's like the very baseline thing that you have to do. If you start missing injections, you start missing pins, that's when you run into hormone instability, and that's when you're going to be at risk of sides. You also want to make sure that you're tracking absolutely everything. Keep a journal. Make sure that if you have a coach, which I am, when I can help you, guide you through this, but make sure that they're tracking these metrics, that your weight, your lifts, libido, visuals, bloods, even your mental state, to make sure that nothing is getting fucked. And the important part about journaling and tracking this shit is that you'll be able to see what happened in a given moment in time. Whether you fucked with your dose, whether you missed a pin, whether you didn't miss a pin, you're following the program perfectly, but something's happening, you'll be able to know. If you're not noting this down or like talking to your coach about this shit, then it's going to be very hard to pinpoint side effects, and something might go unmissed that will come up later on down your enhanced journey if you decide to take another blast. So that's why this is so fucking important too. So look, guys, that was just a quick rundown on taking your first blast. I wanted this to be a quick fucking video, but I am going to start doing a steroid boot camp. So I'm literally going to guide you through every single thing you have to do when it comes from being a new user, intermediate, advanced user for your blast, to make sure that you're mitigating sides, everything is fucking good, and you're not fucking yourself up. So I'm very excited to get that series pumped out. But for now, I'm just going to do small videos like this. My boy Rufus was here following with us the whole fucking time. So if you guys enjoyed this shit, like and subscribe. I'll be back with more value soon. Peace.